The Dark Side of Your Mind. Nobody talks about MindForge Audiobooks. This audiobook is written and presented by MindForge Audiobooks. Introduction. There is a side of your mind that most people never talk about, not because it does not exist, but because it is uncomfortable to face. You like to believe that your mind is your greatest ally, that it helps you think clearly, make smart decisions, and move forward in life. But the truth is, your mind is not always working in your favor. Sometimes it works against you. It creates doubt when you need confidence. It creates fear when you need action. It creates hesitation when you need to move. And the most dangerous part is, you don't even notice it, because you trust your thoughts. Every idea that appears in your mind feels real. It feels logical. It feels like truth. But not every thought is accurate. Many are shaped by unconscious patterns, patterns built from your past experiences, your fears, and your environment. These patterns silently guide your behavior. They influence what you believe. They control how you react. They shape the decisions you make every day. And over time, they can lead to something even more dangerous: self-sabotage. You delay when you should act. You avoid when you should face challenges. You stay comfortable when you should grow. And it feels natural, because your mind is trying to protect you, not improve you. It prefers safety over progress, familiarity over change, comfort over growth. That is the hidden side of your mind, but understanding it changes everything. In this audiobook, you will uncover how your mind really works. You will see why you think the way you do, why you repeat certain patterns, and why your own thoughts can sometimes limit you. More importantly, you will learn how to become aware of these patterns and how to stop them from controlling your life. Because once you see this hidden side clearly, you don't just understand your mind. You begin to take control of it. Chapter 1. Your mind is not always on your side. You've been taught to trust your mind, to follow your thoughts, to believe your instincts, to listen to that inner voice as if it always knows what's best for you. But what if that voice is not designed to help you succeed? What if it's designed to keep you safe, even if that safety keeps you stuck? This is the truth most people never realize. Your mind is not built for success. It is built for survival. And survival and growth are not the same thing. Your brain's primary job is to protect you, not to make you confident, not to help you achieve your goals, not to push you toward your highest potential. Its job is simple: keep you alive, keep you safe, keep you away from risk. Thousands of years ago, this made sense. Danger was everywhere. Uncertainty could mean death. Taking risks could have serious consequences. So your brain evolved to detect threats quickly and react instantly. That system still exists today, but your life is different now. The risks you face are not life-threatening. They are social, emotional, and psychological. Speaking in public, starting something new, taking a chance, stepping outside your comfort zone. But your brain does not see the difference. To your brain, uncertainty still feels like danger. And that's where the conflict begins. You want to grow, but your brain wants you to stay safe. This creates an internal battle. You feel excited about an opportunity, then suddenly doubt appears. You want to take action, then fear holds you back. You plan to change, then hesitation takes over. This is not weakness. This is your survival system doing its job. But the problem is, it is doing the wrong job for the life you want to live. One of the strongest ways your brain protects you is through negative bias. Your mind is naturally drawn to negative information. It focuses more on what could go wrong than what could go right. Why? Because noticing danger was more important than noticing opportunity. If your ancestors ignored a threat, the consequences were serious. But if they ignored an opportunity, they could survive. So your brain learned to prioritize the negative. Even today, this bias is active. You receive 10 compliments and 1 criticism. Your mind focuses on the criticism. You have a good day with 1 problem. Your mind replays the problem. You consider a new opportunity. Your mind highlights the risks. This is threat detection. Your brain is scanning your environment, looking for anything that could go wrong. And when it finds something, even something small, it amplifies it. It makes it feel bigger than it is, more dangerous than it is, more important than it is. This creates fear. Not always obvious fear, but subtle fear. The kind that shows up as hesitation, as doubt, as overthinking. And because it feels logical, you don't question it. You think, I'm just being careful. I'm thinking this through. I'm not ready yet. But often, it's not logic. It's protection. Your brain is trying to keep you within what is familiar, because familiar feels safe, even if it's limiting. This is where your mind starts working against you. It convinces you to stay where you are, not because it's the best place for you, but because it's the safest. You stay in situations that don't help you grow. You avoid opportunities that could change your life. You delay decisions that matter, and it all feels reasonable. That's what makes it dangerous, because your mind doesn't say, stay small. It says, wait a little longer, be more prepared, play it safe, and you listen. Without realizing that every time you choose safety over growth, you reinforce the pattern. You train your brain to avoid discomfort. You make hesitation your default, and over time, this becomes your identity. You start seeing yourself as someone who holds back, someone who overthinks, someone who struggles to act. But the truth is, you were trained that way, not by choice, but by repetition. And once you see that, something shifts. You begin to question your thoughts. Instead of immediately believing them, you ask, is this helping me grow? Or is this trying to protect me? This question changes everything, because not all thoughts deserve to be followed. Some are outdated, some are exaggerated, some are simply your brain trying to keep you in the same place. Awareness is the first step. When you recognize that your mind is not always on your side, you stop blindly trusting every thought. You start observing. You notice patterns. You see when fear appears. You see when doubt rises. You see when hesitation takes over. And instead of obeying it, you pause. This pause creates space. And in that space, you gain control, not over your thoughts, but over your actions. You can feel fear and still move. You can have doubt and still decide. You can hear that inner voice and choose not to follow it. This is the shift from survival to growth. You are no longer reacting automatically. You are choosing intentionally. Over time, this builds something powerful: confidence. Not the kind that comes from feeling fearless, but the kind that comes from acting despite fear. Because you begin to prove something to yourself, that you are not controlled by your mind, that you can move forward even when your brain tells you to stay back. And that changes your life. Because the people who grow are not the ones without fear. They are the ones who understand it, who recognize it, and who move anyway. Your mind will always try to protect you. That will never change. But now you understand something most people don't. Protection is not always progress. And if you want to grow, you cannot follow every thought your mind gives you. Sometimes, you have to go against it. Chapter 2. Negative thoughts feel more real. Negative thoughts don't just appear more often. They feel more real, more convincing, more urgent, more important. And because they feel stronger, you trust them more. This is not your fault. It's how your brain is designed. Your mind naturally focuses on negativity, not because it wants to harm you, but because it is trying to protect you. Your brain is constantly scanning for problems, for risks, for threats, for anything that could go wrong. This is called negativity bias. It means your brain gives more attention and importance to negative information than positive. Why? Because in the past, noticing danger was critical for survival. If your ancestors ignored a threat, they might not survive. But if they ignored something positive, the consequences were smaller. So the brain adapted. It learned to prioritize what is wrong over what is right. And that system is still active today, even when there is no real danger. This is why negative thoughts stand out. You can have a day filled with good moments, But one negative experience will dominate your mind. You remember it more clearly. You replay it more often. You feel it more deeply because your brain treats it as important. This leads to another powerful effect. Emotional intensity overrides logical thinking. When a negative thought appears, it is often connected to emotion. Fear, anxiety, embarrassment, doubt. These emotions are strong. They activate your body. They capture your attention. They make the thought feel urgent. And when emotion is strong, logic becomes weaker. You don't analyze the thought. You react to it. For example, a small mistake feels like a big failure. A delay feels like rejection. A challenge feels like a threat. Even if logically you know it's not that serious, emotion makes it feel serious. And that feeling becomes your reality. This is why negative thoughts are so powerful. Not because they are always true, but because they feel true. And feeling true is often enough for your brain to accept them. Another reason negativity feels stronger is memory. Your brain remembers negative experiences more vividly. It stores them more deeply. It recalls them more easily. This is because negative experiences carry emotional weight, and emotion strengthens memory. You may forget many positive moments, but you clearly remember embarrassing situations, failures, times you felt rejected, moments of fear or stress. These memories stay active, and they influence your present thinking. When you face a new situation, your brain searches for similar past experiences. If it finds something negative, it uses it as a reference. It says, "This happened before. It might happen again. Be careful." And just like that, your thinking becomes influenced by the past. You start expecting negative outcomes. You become more cautious, more doubtful, more hesitant. Not because the situation is actually negative, but because your memory is guiding your perception. This is how negativity shapes decisions. You don't just think negatively. You act based on those thoughts. You avoid opportunities because they feel risky. You hesitate because you expect failure. You stay in your comfort zone because it feels safer, even when there is potential for growth, even when there is no real danger. Your brain chooses safety because negative thoughts make risk feel bigger than it is. This creates a pattern. Negative thought, emotional reaction, cautious behavior, limited outcome. And that outcome reinforces the original thought. You think, "See, I was right." But you were not seeing reality clearly. You were seeing it through a negative filter. This is why many people feel stuck, not because they lack ability, but because their thinking is shaped by negativity. They expect less. They try less. They achieve less. And the cycle continues. Breaking this pattern begins with awareness. You need to recognize that negative thoughts are not always accurate. They are amplified. Your brain is exaggerating risk. It is highlighting what could go wrong, not what is likely to happen. The next time a negative thought appears, pause. Don't immediately believe it. Ask yourself, is this thought true? Or does it just feel true? This question creates distance. It separates emotion from reality. You begin to see the thought as something that appeared, not something that must be followed. You also need to balance your thinking. If your brain focuses on what could go wrong, you can ask, what could go right? If your mind highlights risk, you can consider opportunity. This does not mean ignoring negativity. It means not letting it dominate, because your brain will always notice problems, but you can choose what you focus on. Over time, this changes your perception. You still notice negative thoughts, but you don't treat them as absolute truth. You question them. You observe them. You choose whether to act on them, and this reduces their power. You become less controlled by fear, less influenced by doubt, less limited by past experiences, because you understand something important. Negative thoughts feel real, but they are not always reality. And once you stop treating them as truth, you start seeing things more clearly. And when you see clearly, you make better decisions. Chapter 3: Self-Sabotage. is automatic. You don't always fail because of a lack of ability. Sometimes you fail because your own mind gets in the way. You plan to improve, you set goals, you feel motivated, but then something happens. You delay, you avoid, you lose momentum, you stop, and it doesn't make sense because you want to move forward. So why do you hold yourself back? This is self-sabotage, and most of the time, it's automatic. You are not consciously choosing to destroy your progress. Your mind is doing it for you based on patterns it has learned over time. Self-sabotage is not about weakness. It's about protection. Your brain is trying to keep you safe. Safe from failure, safe from rejection, safe from uncertainty. But in doing so, it keeps you stuck. One of the biggest reasons for self-sabotage is fear of failure. Failure feels uncomfortable. It challenges your identity. It creates doubt. It brings uncertainty. So your brain tries to avoid it, not by saying, "Don't try," but by creating subtle resistance. You overthink, you procrastinate, you wait for the perfect moment. All of these feel logical, but they serve one purpose: to delay action. Because if you don't act, you don't fail. And if you don't fail, you stay safe. But there is another fear that is less obvious: fear of success. At first, this sounds strange. Why would you fear success? Because success brings change, and change brings uncertainty. If you succeed, your life changes. Your responsibilities increase, your expectations rise, your comfort disappears, and your brain does not like uncertainty. Even positive change can feel threatening, so your mind creates resistance. You start strong, but don't finish. You get close, but pull back. You make progress, but slow down. Not because you can't succeed, but because part of you is uncomfortable with what success requires. This is where the comfort zone becomes a hidden trap. Your comfort zone is not just about what feels good. It is about what feels familiar, even if your current situation is not ideal. If it is familiar, your brain sees it as safe, and anything outside of that feels risky, so you stay. You stay in habits that don't help you. You stay in patterns that limit you. You stay in situations that don't push you forward, because leaving the comfort zone requires discomfort. And your brain resists discomfort. It tells you, this is enough. This is fine. This is safer. And you listen, without realizing that comfort is costing you growth. This is how self-sabotage becomes a pattern. You start, you face discomfort, you pull back, you return to what is familiar. And each time you repeat this cycle, it becomes stronger. This leads to repeating limiting patterns. You may notice this in your life. You start something new, but don't continue. You make progress, but fall back. You want change, but stay the same. It feels frustrating, because you know you are capable of more. But your behavior does not match your potential. This is not random, it is a pattern. Your brain is following a script it has learned, a script that says, stay safe, avoid risk, return to what is familiar. And unless you become aware of it, this script keeps running. The key to breaking self-sabotage is not forcing yourself harder. It is understanding the pattern. The next time you hesitate, pause. Ask yourself, is this really about logic, or is this fear? Am I avoiding failure, or avoiding change? These questions create awareness. They help you see what is actually happening. You begin to recognize that the resistance is not random. It has a reason, and once you see the reason, you can challenge it. You can choose to act anyway. This is the shift. Instead of waiting to feel ready, you act despite discomfort. You accept that fear is part of the process. You understand that growth will not feel comfortable, and that's okay, because comfort is not the goal. Progress is. Another important step is to reduce the size of your actions. Self-sabotage often happens when things feel overwhelming, so your brain avoids the task completely. But when you make the actions smaller, it becomes easier to start. Instead of thinking, I need to do everything perfectly, you think, I just need to take one step. This reduces resistance. It allows movement. And movement breaks the pattern. Each small action sends a new signal to your brain. I can move forward. Over time, this builds confidence. Not from thinking, but from doing. You also need to change how you see discomfort. Right now, discomfort feels like a warning, a signal to stop. But in reality, discomfort is often a sign of growth. It means you are stepping outside your Pravichnaya pattern. It means you are doing something new. It means you are moving forward. If you can learn to accept discomfort, you reduce self-sabotage. You stop running from it. You move through it. And that changes everything. Because self-sabotage only works when you avoid discomfort. When you face it, the pattern weakens. Over time, you build a new pattern. Start. Face discomfort. Continue. Grow. This becomes your new default. You stop pulling back. You stop avoiding. You start finishing what you begin. And that is powerful. Because success is not about avoiding fear. It is about moving despite it. You will still feel resistance. That will not disappear. But now you understand it. You recognize it. And you don't let it control you. Because you know something most people don't. Self-sabotage is not your identity. It is a pattern. And patterns can be changed. One action at a time. Chapter 4. The addiction to comfort. Your brain is designed to avoid discomfort. Not because you are weak, but because your brain is trying to protect you. Discomfort signals uncertainty. Uncertainty signals risk. And risk to your brain feels like danger. So it pushes you toward what feels easy, familiar, and safe. This is why comfort becomes addictive. Not in the traditional sense, but in a subtle, powerful way. You choose what feels good in the moment. You avoid what feels difficult. You delay what feels uncomfortable. You stay where things are predictable. And over time, this becomes your default behavior. But there is a problem. Comfort gives you short-term relief, but it often takes away long-term growth. This creates a constant conflict. You want progress, but you choose comfort. You want change, but you avoid discomfort. And this gap keeps you stuck. One of the main reasons this happens is because of how your brain values time. Your brain prefers immediate rewards over future benefits. It wants pleasure now, not results later. This is the difference between short-term pleasure and long-term growth. Short-term pleasure is easy. Scrolling, avoiding work, choosing what feels relaxing instead of challenging. These actions give you quick satisfaction. They reduce discomfort instantly, but they don't move your life forward. Long-term growth is different. It requires effort. It involves discomfort. It demands consistency. The reward is bigger, but delayed. And your brain struggles with that delay. It does not naturally prioritize future results. It prioritizes present comfort. This is where dopamine plays a role. Dopamine is often called the feel-good chemical. But it's not just about feeling good. It's about motivation and reward. When you do something pleasurable, your brain releases dopamine. This reinforces the behavior. It tells your brain, do this again. The problem is that modern life is filled with easy dopamine, quick entertainment, instant feedback, immediate rewards. These require little effort, but give strong stimulation, and your brain adapts to this. It starts expecting quick rewards. So when you face something that requires effort, like learning, working, or building a skill, it feels harder. Not because it is impossible, but because it does not give immediate reward. Your brain compares it to easier options, and it chooses what feels better in the moment. This is why discipline feels difficult. Discipline requires you to act without immediate reward, to do something now that benefits you later, to choose effort over comfort. But your brain resists this. It asks, why do this now when I can feel good immediately? And if you are not aware of this, you follow that impulse. You delay action. You choose comfort. And the cycle continues. The more you choose comfort, the stronger the pattern becomes. You train your brain to avoid discomfort. You make it harder to act when things are challenging. And over time, your tolerance for effort decreases. Small tasks feel overwhelming. Simple challenges feel difficult. Progress feels harder than it should. But the opposite is also true. The more you face discomfort, the easier it becomes. Each time you choose effort over comfort, you strengthen your ability to act. You build resistance to distraction. You increase your focus. You improve your discipline. This is how growth happens. Not through comfort, but through controlled discomfort. You don't need to suffer. But you do need to accept that growth will not always feel easy. The key is to change how you see discomfort. Right now, it feels like something to avoid. But it can become something to use, a signal that you are moving forward, a sign that you are doing something meaningful. Instead of asking, "How do I avoid this discomfort?" you begin to ask, "What is this discomfort helping me build?" This shift changes your behavior. You stop running from effort. You start using it. Another important step is reducing dependence on instant rewards. You don't need to remove them completely, but you need balance. If your brain is constantly exposed to easy pleasure, difficult tasks will always feel harder. So you create space. You limit distractions. You focus on one task at a time. You allow yourself to experience effort without interruption. This retrains your brain. It lowers the need for constant stimulation. It makes focus easier, and it strengthens discipline. Discipline is not something you are born with. It is something you build through repetition, through small actions, through consistent choices. Each time you choose long-term growth over short-term comfort, you strengthen it. Each time you act despite discomfort, you improve it. Over time, this becomes your default. You stop asking, "Do I feel like doing this?" You start doing what needs to be done, and that creates a powerful shift. Because success is not about always feeling motivated. It is about acting even when you don't. Comfort will always be there. Your brain will always prefer it. That will not change. But now you understand the cost, and you understand the choice. Comfort keeps you where you are. Discomfort moves you forward, and the direction you choose determines the life you build. Chapter 5. Your ego distorts reality. You believe you want the truth. You want to understand, improve, and grow. You tell yourself that you are open-minded, that you are willing to learn. But there is something inside your mind that often works against that goal. Your ego. The ego is not just arrogance or pride. It is your sense of identity, the image you have of yourself. It is how you define who you are, what you believe, and how you see your place in the world. And its main job is not to find truth. Its job is to protect you. More specifically, it protects your identity. It wants you to feel consistent. It wants you to feel certain. It wants you to feel right, even when you are not. This is why your ego often distorts reality. Instead of seeing things as they are, your mind adjusts your perception to protect how you see yourself. This begins with a simple pattern: protecting identity over truth. When something challenges your beliefs or your self-image, your brain reacts, not with curiosity, but with defense. For example, if you believe you are competent, criticism feels threatening. If you see yourself as a good decision maker, mistakes feel uncomfortable. If you identify with a certain belief, opposing ideas feel wrong. In these moments, your ego steps in. It does not ask, "Is this true?" It asks, "Does this protect my identity?" And if the answer is no, it resists. This resistance appears in two main forms: defensiveness and denial. Defensiveness is immediate. You feel the need to justify yourself. You explain your actions. You protect your decisions, even if you know deep down that you may be wrong, because admitting that would create discomfort. Denial is more subtle. You ignore information that challenges you. You dismiss feedback. You avoid thinking about things that make you uncomfortable. Not because you are trying to deceive yourself, but because your brain is trying to maintain stability. Your identity feels safe when it remains unchanged. So your mind filters reality to protect it. This is why you may resist feedback. Feedback is one of the most valuable tools for growth. It shows you what you cannot see. It highlights areas for improvement. It gives you a chance to adjust. But it also challenges your identity, and that makes it uncomfortable. So your ego reacts. You may think, they don't understand. That's not true. They are wrong. Sometimes this is correct, but often it is a defense. Your mind is rejecting the message, not because it is false, but because it feels threatening. This limits your growth, because when you resist feedback, you stop learning. You stay within your current perspective. You repeat the same patterns, and over time, this creates stagnation. Another powerful force behind this is the need to feel right. Your brain values being right more than being accurate, because being right feels good. It confirms your identity. It gives you certainty. It reinforces your beliefs. But this creates a problem. You stop questioning yourself. You defend your opinions. You argue instead of listening. You hold on to beliefs even when they are challenged, because changing your mind feels like losing something. It feels like admitting you were wrong. And your ego wants to avoid that, so it protects your position, even if it limits your understanding. This is why people can stay stuck in the same thinking patterns for years, not because they lack intelligence, but because they protect their identity too strongly. Breaking this pattern begins with awareness. You need to recognize when your ego is active. The next time you feel defensive, pause. Ask yourself, am I trying to understand or trying to protect myself? This question creates clarity. It helps you see what is actually happening. You begin to notice when your reaction is emotional, not logical. You see when your mind is defending instead of learning. This awareness gives you a choice. You can continue to protect your identity, or you can expand it. Choosing growth requires humility. It requires accepting that you may not always be right, that your current understanding may be incomplete, that there is always more to learn. This does not weaken you. It strengthens you, because it opens your mind. It allows you to see more clearly. It gives you access to new perspectives. You also begin to see feedback differently. Instead of treating it as a threat, you treat it as information. Not all feedback will be correct, but some of it will be valuable. And if you can stay open, you can use it to improve. Another important shift is separating your identity from your thoughts. Right now, you may feel like your beliefs define you. So when they are challenged, it feels personal. But your thoughts are not your identity. They are ideas, and ideas can change. When you understand this, you become more flexible. You can update your thinking without feeling threatened. You can let go of what no longer serves you, and you can adopt new perspectives more easily. Over time, this changes how you think. You become less defensive, more curious, more open. You focus less on being right and more on understanding, and that leads to better decisions, because you are no longer limited by your ego. You are guided by awareness. Your ego will always be part of you. It will always try to protect your identity. That will not disappear. But now, you can recognize it. You can question it. You can choose when to listen and when to go beyond it. Because growth requires more than confidence. It requires honesty. And honesty begins the moment you stop asking, how do I stay right? And start asking, what is actually true? Chapter 6. Overthinking is a hidden enemy. Overthinking does not feel like a problem. It feels like effort. It feels like you are trying to understand things deeply, like you are being careful, like you are making sure you don't make mistakes. But overthinking is not always helpful. In many cases, it is a hidden form of avoidance. You are not moving forward. You are staying in your head. Thinking becomes a way to delay action. Instead of taking a step, you analyze. Instead of deciding, you consider more options. Instead of moving, you wait for clarity. And it feels productive, because your mind is active. But nothing is changing. This is thinking as avoidance. It protects you from discomfort. If you act, you might fail. If you decide, you might be wrong. If you move forward, you face uncertainty. But if you keep thinking, you stay safe. You delay the moment where something real happens. This is why overthinking is so dangerous, because it hides behind logic. It tells you, I just need more time. I need to be sure. I'm thinking this through. But in reality, you are avoiding the risk of action. The more you think, the more possibilities appear. Each option has benefits and risks. Each choice has uncertainty. And instead of reducing confusion, your thinking increases it. This leads to paralysis by analysis. You are not stuck because you don't know what to do. You are stuck because you are trying to find the perfect answer. An answer with no risk, no doubt, no chance of failure. But that answer does not exist. Every decision carries uncertainty, and when you try to eliminate it completely, you create a loop. You think, you doubt, you think more, you doubt again. This is a mental loop. Your mind repeats the same thoughts. You go over the same ideas. You revisit the same scenarios. You imagine different outcomes again and again, but you don't reach a conclusion. You stay in the loop. This creates indecision. You delay choices. You postpone action. You wait for clarity that never fully comes. And the longer you stay in this state, the harder it becomes to act. Because overthinking drains your energy. It makes simple decisions feel complex. It makes small actions feel heavy. And over time, you begin to lose confidence in your ability to decide. You start thinking, what if I choose wrong? What if there's a better option? What if this fails? These questions feel important, but they keep you stuck because they focus on what could go wrong, not on what you can do. Another reason overthinking is powerful is because thinking feels easier than action. Thinking is safe. It happens in your mind. It does not expose you to risk. It does not create immediate consequences. But action is different. It requires effort. It involves uncertainty. It creates real outcomes. And your brain resists that. It prefers the safety of thinking, because thinking gives you the feeling of control, without the risk of failure. But this control is an illusion, because while you are thinking, nothing is improving. Your situation stays the same. Your ideas remain untested. Your potential remains unused. This is the hidden cost. Overthinking gives you the feeling of progress, without actual progress. Breaking this pattern requires a shift, not in how you think, but in how you act. You need to change your relationship with thinking. Instead of using it as a place to stay, use it as a tool to move. Think to understand, then act to learn. This is the key, because clarity does not come from endless thinking. It comes from experience. When you act, you get feedback. You see what works. You see what doesn't. You adjust based on reality. This reduces uncertainty, because now your thinking is based on actual results, not imagined possibilities. To apply this, you need limits. Limit how long you think. Give yourself a short time to consider your options. Then decide. This forces your brain to focus. It prevents endless loops. It trains you to move forward. You also need to accept imperfection. No decision will be perfect. There will always be risk. There will always be unknowns. Waiting for certainty is a way of avoiding action. Instead, choose a direction and adjust as you go. You can correct mistakes. You can learn from outcomes. You can improve over time, but you cannot improve without action. Another important step is recognizing when thinking becomes repetitive. If you are thinking the same thoughts again and again, you are not gaining new insight. You are looping. That is your signal, not to think more, but to act. Even a small step is enough, because action breaks the loop. It shifts you from imagination to reality. Over time, this changes your behavior. You stop relying on thinking for comfort. You start using action for progress. You become more decisive, more confident, more effective, not because you always know the answer, but because you are willing to move without it. This is the difference. Overthinking keeps you in your head. Action moves you into the real world, and the real world is where growth happens. you will still think. That will not change. But now thinking has a purpose, not to replace action, but to support it. Because in the end, success is not built on perfect thinking. It is built on consistent action. And the sooner you move, the sooner you learn, the sooner you grow, and the sooner you break free from the trap of overthinking. Chapter 7. Emotional Reactions Control. You like to believe you make decisions logically, that you think first, then act. But in reality, the process often works the other way around. You feel first, and then you think. Your emotions react faster than your logic. Before you have time to analyze a situation, your brain has already created a feeling: fear, anger, anxiety, excitement, and that feeling shapes your response. This happens automatically. It is part of how your brain is designed. Emotions are quick. They are immediate. They prepare you to act. In the past, this was useful. You needed fast reactions to survive. There was no time to analyze every situation. But in modern life, this system can work against you. Because not every situation requires a fast reaction. Sometimes it requires a thoughtful response. But if you are not aware, your emotions take control, and you react without thinking. This is the difference between reacting and responding. Reacting is automatic. It happens instantly. It is driven by emotion. It does not involve awareness. Responding is different. It involves a pause. It includes awareness. It is a conscious choice. Most people spend their lives reacting, because reacting is easier. It requires no effort, no reflection, no control, but it often leads to outcomes you don't want. Think about anger. When you feel angry, your body changes, your heart rate increases, your thoughts speed up, your focus narrows. You feel the urge to act, to speak quickly, to defend yourself, to release the emotion. And in that moment, it feels justified. It feels right. But once the moment passes, you see it differently. You realize you reacted too quickly. You said something you didn't mean. You made a decision you regret. This is emotional control. Not because emotions are bad, but because unobserved emotions lead to automatic reactions. Fear works in a similar way. When you feel fear, your brain assumes there is danger. Even if there is no real threat, you avoid, you hesitate, you hold back, you don't take the opportunity, you don't speak up, you don't move forward, and later you regret it. You think, I should have tried. I should have taken the chance. I should have acted. But in the moment, fear controlled you. Impulse decisions follow the same pattern. You act quickly, without thinking through the consequences, because the emotion feels urgent. You want immediate relief, immediate satisfaction, immediate action. But fast decisions are not always good decisions. They are emotional decisions, and emotional decisions often ignore long-term impact. This is why regret appears after emotional choices, not because you are incapable, but because you acted without awareness. You followed the feeling instead of observing it. This is the key shift. You cannot stop emotions from appearing, but you can stop them from controlling your actions. To do this, you need awareness. You need to notice your emotions as they arise, not after you react, but in the moment. When you feel anger, recognize it. I am feeling angry. When you feel fear, notice it. This is fear. This simple awareness creates distance. You are no longer fully inside the emotion. You are observing it, and that observation creates a pause. The pause is where control begins. Without a pause, emotion leads directly to reaction. But with a pause, you create space. Space to think. Space to choose. Space to respond differently. The pause does not need to be long. It can be a breath, a moment of silence, a brief delay before action. But it changes everything, because now you are not reacting automatically. You are choosing your response. This is what separates control from impulse. In that moment, you can ask, What is the best response here? Will this action help me or harm me? Instead of, what do I feel like doing right now? This shift is powerful because your feelings are temporary, but your actions have consequences. Over time, practicing this changes your behavior. You become less reactive. You don't respond instantly to every emotion. You allow it to pass before acting. You think more clearly. You make better decisions. And most importantly, you reduce regret because you are no longer acting from impulse. You are acting from intention. This does not mean you become emotionless. It means you become aware. You still feel everything. But you are not controlled by it. Your emotions become signals, not commands. They tell you something is happening, but they do not decide what you do. This gives you real control, not over your emotions, but over your actions. And that is what matters, because your life is not shaped by what you feel. It is shaped by what you do. And when you learn to pause, observe, and respond, you take back control from your emotions. You stop being driven by impulse, and you start acting with intention. That is the difference between reacting and choosing your direction. Chapter 8. Your past controls your present. You believe you are making decisions based on the present moment, that your choices are logical, current, and intentional. But much of your behavior is not coming from the present. It is coming from your past. Every experience you've had has left a mark. Some are obvious. Most are subtle. Conversations, failures, successes, rejections, moments of fear or embarrassment. Your brain stores these experiences, not just as memories, but as patterns. And these patterns shape how you think, feel, and act today. This is how your past controls your present. When you face a situation, your brain does not start fresh. It searches for similar experiences from before. Then it uses those experiences to guide your reaction. If something felt safe in the past, your brain moves toward it. If something felt painful, your brain tries to avoid it. This happens instantly, before you are aware of it. For example, if you were criticized in the past, you may become more sensitive to feedback. If you experienced failure, you may hesitate to try again. If you were rejected, you may avoid situations where rejection is possible. The current situation may be different, but your brain reacts as if it is the same. This is not weakness. It is conditioning. Your brain is trying to protect you by using past experiences as a guide. But the problem is, the past is not always accurate for the present. What once hurt you may no longer be a threat. What once failed may now succeed. But your brain does not always update these patterns. It repeats them. This is where trauma and learned responses come in. Trauma does not always mean extreme events. It can be small, repeated experiences that created strong emotional reactions. Moments where you felt unsafe, embarrassed, or powerless. Your brain learns from these moments. It creates automatic responses to avoid similar pain in the future. These responses become habits. You may not even realize they exist, but they influence your behavior. You avoid certain situations. You react strongly to specific triggers. You hold back without knowing why, because your brain is trying to protect you, based on something that already happened. These learned responses can stay active for years, even when they are no longer useful, even when they limit your growth. This is how you begin living in repeated patterns. You face new situations, but respond in old ways. You make similar choices. You experience similar outcomes. You repeat the same cycles. It may feel like bad luck or lack of progress, but often it is pattern repetition. Your brain is following familiar paths because familiar feels safe, even if it keeps you stuck. For example, you may continue avoiding risks because of past failure. You may stay in your comfort zone because it feels predictable. You may doubt yourself because of past experiences. And each time you repeat these patterns, they become stronger. They become your default. You start believing, this is just how I am. But it is not who you are. It is what you have learned. And what is learned can be changed. Breaking these unconscious cycles begins with awareness. You need to recognize the pattern, not just the action, but the reason behind it. The next time you react strongly or hesitate, pause. Ask yourself, is this about the present or the past? This question creates clarity. It helps you see when your reaction is based on old experiences, not current reality. You may notice you are avoiding something that is not actually dangerous. You are reacting more strongly than the situation requires. You are expecting outcomes based on past events. This awareness is powerful because once you see the pattern, you can interrupt it. Instead of reacting automatically, you choose differently. You take a small step forward. You respond calmly instead of emotionally. You act even when your past tells you not to. This feels uncomfortable because you are going against what your brain has learned. But that discomfort is part of change. Each time you act differently, you send a new signal to your brain. This is safe. This is possible. This is a new way. Over time, this creates new patterns. The old responses weaken, the new ones become stronger, and your behavior begins to change. Another important step is patience. These patterns were built over time. They will not disappear instantly, but they can be reshaped through repetition, through awareness, through consistent action. You do not need to change everything at once. You just need to start noticing, then choosing, one moment at a time. Because every time you choose a new response, you step out of the past. You bring your thinking into the present, and you regain control. Your past will always be part of your story, but it does not have to control your future, because you are not limited by what has happened. You are shaped by what you choose next. And when you become aware of your patterns, you stop repeating them, and you start creating something new. Chapter 9. The Illusion of Control. You feel like you are in control of your decisions. You think, you analyze, you choose, and then you act. It feels intentional. It feels conscious. It feels like you are directing your life. But what if much of that control is an illusion? What if many of your decisions are made before you are even aware of them? This is the hidden truth about the mind. You don't always decide first. You often become aware after the decision has already started. Your brain is constantly processing information in the background. It is observing patterns, comparing past experiences, predicting outcomes. All of this happens below your conscious awareness. And based on this processing, your brain begins to form decisions before you think about them. This is where subconscious decisions come in. The subconscious mind works faster than conscious thought. It reacts instantly. It uses patterns. It avoids effort. So when you face a situation, your subconscious often makes a quick judgment. Safe or risky, familiar or unfamiliar, approach or avoid. This happens in a fraction of a second. Then, your conscious mind steps in, but not to make the decision, to explain it. This is where the illusion begins, because it feels like you are thinking your way to a decision. But in many cases, you are explaining a decision that has already been influenced. Your conscious mind acts like a narrator. It creates a story that makes your behavior feel logical. For example, you avoid an opportunity. Your mind says, "It's not the right time. I need more preparation. It's too risky." These explanations feel reasonable, but the real reason may be simple. Your brain felt discomfort, and it chose to avoid it. Then your conscious mind created a story to justify that choice. This is the mind's storytelling system. It connects actions with explanations. It fills in gaps. It creates meaning. And it does this so quickly that you don't notice the process. You only experience the final result, a decision that feels logical. But underneath that logic, there may be emotion, habit, or subconscious pattern. This is why people can be confident in decisions that are not fully rational, because the story feels complete, even if the process behind it was automatic. Another key part of this illusion is reaction first, logic later. When something happens, your brain reacts immediately. You feel something. You lean toward a response. You begin to act. Only after that does your logical thinking catch up. It analyzes, it explains, it justifies. This is why you sometimes say or do things and only later think about them. In the moment, the reaction feels natural. Afterward, you reflect. You may realize, that wasn't the best choice. I should have handled that differently. But in the moment, your subconscious was in control, and your conscious mind followed. This happens because your brain prioritizes speed. Fast decisions were important for survival. So your mind developed systems to act quickly, even if that meant sacrificing accuracy. Today, that system still exists, but now it can lead to mistakes. You react emotionally instead of thoughtfully. You follow habits instead of questioning them. You make decisions based on comfort instead of logic. And then your mind explains it in a way that feels right. This is why the illusion of control is so strong. Because you don't see the process, you only see the result. And the result feels like your choice. But real control is different. Real control is not about stopping your subconscious from working. That is not possible. Real control is about becoming aware of it. It is about noticing when a reaction begins, when a feeling appears, when a pattern activates, when a quick judgment forms. This awareness creates a gap, a moment where you can pause. And in that pause, you have a choice. You can follow the automatic response, or you can question it. You can ask, why am I thinking this? Is this based on fact or habit? Is this helping me or limiting me? These questions interrupt the automatic process. They slow down your thinking. They bring your conscious mind into the decision before the action is complete. This is how you move from illusion to control, not by eliminating subconscious influence, but by working with it. You allow the initial reaction to appear, but you don't immediately follow it. You observe it, you evaluate it, and then you decide. Over time, this changes your behavior. You become less reactive, more aware, more intentional. Your decisions become clearer, not because you control every thought, but because you control what you do with them. You also begin to see your mind differently. You stop assuming that every thought is correct. You recognize that your brain is constantly interpreting, predicting, and simplifying. And sometimes it gets it wrong. This makes you more flexible. You question your assumptions. You adjust your thinking. You stay open to new information. And this leads to better decisions, because you are no longer controlled by automatic patterns. You are guided by awareness. The illusion of control is not a weakness. It is a natural part of how your brain works. But understanding it gives you an advantage, because now you see what others don't. You see the gap between reaction and choice. And in that gap, you find real control, not perfect control, but enough to change your direction. And that is what matters most. Chapter 10. Breaking Free from Your Mind. For most of your life, your mind has been in control, not in an obvious way, but in subtle, automatic patterns. You think a thought and follow it. You feel an emotion and react to it. You face a situation and respond based on habit. It feels natural. It feels like you. But as you've seen throughout this audiobook, much of this process is automatic, conditioned, unconscious, and if you don't become aware of it, it continues to run your life. Breaking free does not mean silencing your mind. It means understanding it. And it begins with one simple step: awareness. Awareness is the moment you notice what is happening inside you, not after you react, but while it is happening. You notice a thought, you notice a feeling, you notice a pattern starting to form. For example, a negative thought appears, a fear rises, an impulse to react shows up. Instead of immediately following it, you recognize it. I am thinking this. I am feeling this. This may seem small, but it is powerful, because in that moment, you are no longer fully controlled by your mind. You are observing it, and that creates distance. This distance is the beginning of freedom, because when you observe your thoughts, you stop identifying with them. You stop believing that every thought is true. You stop assuming every feeling must be followed. You begin to see your thoughts as events, not commands. This is the practice of observing without attachment. A thought appears, but you don't immediately react. A feeling rises, but you don't act on it instantly. You allow it to exist without letting it control you. This is not suppression. You are not pushing thoughts away. You are letting them pass, without holding on to them, like watching clouds move across the sky. They appear, they stay for a moment, then they go. This changes your relationship with your mind. You are no longer inside every thought. You are aware of them. And that awareness gives you something most people never use: choice. Instead of reacting automatically, you can pause. And in that pause, you decide. This is where you replace reaction with intention. Reaction is fast. It is driven by habit, emotion, and past conditioning. Intention is different. It is conscious. It is deliberate. It is chosen. When a situation arises, instead of asking, "What do I feel like doing?" you begin to ask, "What is the best action right now?" This question shifts your focus from impulse to purpose, from emotion to clarity. For example, you feel fear, but you still take a small step forward. You feel anger, but you choose to stay calm. You feel doubt, but you act anyway. This is not easy, because your brain is used to reacting. It will try to pull you back into old patterns. But each time you choose differently, you weaken those patterns. And over time, you build new ones. This is how conscious control is created. Not through force, but through repetition. Each moment of awareness strengthens it. Each pause reinforces it. Each intentional action builds it. You don't need to control everything at once. You just need to start noticing. One thought, one reaction, one decision. That is enough, because small changes, repeated consistently, create powerful results. Another important part of breaking free is acceptance. You will not eliminate negative thoughts. You will not remove fear completely. You will not become perfect. And you don't need to. The goal is not to control every thought, but to stop being controlled by them. There will be moments when you react automatically, moments when old patterns take over. That is part of the process. What matters is what you do next. Do you stay in that pattern, or do you become aware again? Each time you return to awareness, you strengthen it. Each time you choose differently, you grow. Over time, this changes how you experience life. You become less reactive, more calm, more focused. You don't get pulled into every thought. You don't follow every emotion. You respond with intention. And that creates stability. Not because life becomes easier, but because you become stronger. You also begin to trust yourself, not because you control everything, but because you know you can handle what arises. You can observe your thoughts. You can pause before reacting. You can choose your actions. And that builds confidence, real confidence, the kind that comes from self-control. The kind that does not depend on circumstances. Breaking free from your mind does not mean escaping it. It means working with it, understanding its patterns, recognizing its limits, using its strengths. You allow thoughts to come, but you don't follow them blindly. You allow emotions to rise, but you don't let them control you. You live with awareness, and awareness gives you freedom. Because in the end, your life is not shaped by what your mind produces. It is shaped by what you choose to do with it. And when you learn to observe, pause, and act with intention, you are no longer trapped inside your mind. You are guiding it. And that is where real control begins. Conclusion. Your mind is powerful, but it is not always accurate. It creates thoughts, reactions, and patterns automatically. Many of them feel real, convincing, and true. But as you've discovered, not every thought reflects reality. Some are shaped by fear, past experiences, and unconscious habits. The moment you become aware of this, something changes. Awareness separates you from automatic thinking. You begin to notice your thoughts instead of blindly following them. You create space between what appears in your mind and how you respond. And in that space, you gain control. You realize something important. You are not your thoughts. You are not your patterns. They may influence you, but they do not define you. Change does not begin with forcing your mind to be perfect. It begins with conscious action, small decisions, intentional responses, consistent awareness. Over time, these small shifts reshape how you think and act. Because in the end, there are only two paths. Either you learn to understand and guide your mind, or you allow it to control your life. The choice is yours. The call to action. What pattern in your mind has been holding you back? Take a moment and think about it. If something came up while listening, don't ignore it. Share it in the comments. Your experience might help someone else recognize what they've been struggling with too. And if you know someone who feels stuck, overwhelmed, or controlled by their thoughts, send this audiobook to them. Sometimes one idea can open a completely new way of thinking. If you want more powerful mindset audiobooks like this, make sure to subscribe to MindForge Audiobooks and stay connected for future content, because understanding your mind is the first step to changing your life. Your mind can trap you, or it can free you. The choice begins with awareness.